Hello and welcome to this any percent tutorial for Duke Nukem 3D World Tour. As there are some key differences between this version and Megaton, I decided to put together this video series outlining the differences. Now to start, we're going to take a look at key bindings. For the weapons in this game, you can leave the pistol, shotgun, chain gun, and RPG where they are. But you want to have the pipe bombs, the shrinker, and the devastator all bound to something that's easy to reach. Now, key bindings are always going to be something that's personal preference, but this is what I use. I also unbind the mighty boot from 1 and instead bind the med kit to 1 because there's a quick kick that's bound to Q, and I prefer to use that instead. Next thing is going to be your items. Hollow Duke is worthless. There's no need to ever use it, so you can leave that alone. Night vision is worthless. You don't need it. But your jetpack and steroids are used quite a bit, so you're going to want to bind those to something easy to reach. Next is well, this is more of a personal thing for me, but I think crouch by default is on control, but I bind it to control C and also on my middle mouse button. I prefer to use it on my mouse, it's just more comfortable for me, but do whatever's best for you. And next we're going to look at the game settings. This is personal preference. You can use Classic HUD if you want to, but I use minimal. You're going to want auto aim off because, believe it or not, there actually is some locational damage for bosses like the Battle Lord. There's in that fight you're gonna aim the RPG at his head because it actually does more damage. Display crosshair is kind of helpful. Always run. This is a speed run, so you always want to run. Mature content doesn't matter. Show level stats is kind of a personal preference. The playback feature. The game keeps a running recording of every level that you're on. Every time you die, you can use the directional keys on your keyboard to roll back in time and do another attempt if you die. Sound settings. At some points in the game, it's especially in the Abyss, when you start to get lower and deeper into the level, where the lava is, the game starts to lag from the sounds, so turning off ambience actually helps it run much smoother. Duke Talk is a personal preference thing. It gets annoying for me, so I keep it off. And that should be it. Let's get into the game now. So I've turned off the monsters, as you can see there, so they don't get in the way when I explain this. So throughout the run, you're going to want to move diagonally, holding your forward and one of your strafe keys. This is a quirk in most first-person shooters from the 90s, where it combined the differential between the two forms of movement, and this is the fastest way to move around. Same applies going backwards. Now the next thing I want to talk about is saving and loading. I've already discussed the playback feature, but the game also has, if you hit F2, you can quick save, and F3 is the quick load. Or actually, I shouldn't really call it a quick save and quick load because you still have to go through a menu, but there is no way to, in this game, to hit a button and continue playing. You always have to go through a menu, and it can be kind of slow doing it that way. And also, if you'll pay attention here to this. Every time you load up a save, I'm going to try to move my mouse, and you're going to see what happens here. You notice how sluggish it is? Always it takes a second because it's actually loading in the sounds, and this game has a weird problem with has some issues with sounds. So I prefer not to do that unless I have to in some levels, but yeah, primarily rely on the playback feature if we mess up a trick. We die and need to do something over. But keep in mind, if you use the playback feature, it is kind of buggy. There are points in the game where the game just thinks you're dead, and even though nothing happened to you. And that's just something we have to deal with in this version of the game. Also, keep in mind, if you're running full game, there's going to be an issue with crashing, and that's just from prolonged playing of the game, and there's no way around it. So I would recommend, you know, after a few failed attempts, you just restart the game altogether. That's going to avoid a huge headache later on, especially if you're on PB pace. Yeah, that's going to cover it for the basics. We're going to see you next time for covering the first episode of the game. Thanks for tuning in, and I will see you then.